Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the fourth and final installment of the YASH4SAP virtual webinar series. Appreciate everybody that's joined us from the first episode a couple of months ago up until our final episode today. We purposefully put the order together in a way where we led with C5mi's digital reliability centered maintenance solution that is an SAP approved prepackaged solution, and ending today with a brand new solution that has also just recently been approved by SAP, and you'll come to know it today by the digital pull system, or DPS. And as I've been putting together how to intro today's webinar, what came to mind is thinking back to when that brand new movie's coming out, or your new TV series that you've been waiting all summer to start back up, or if you're a music fan, that your favorite artist's new release coming out. And today is really a culmination of that for the C5Mi and YASH Technologies team. We are unveiling a brand new solution to the audience today via this webinar. The digital pull system is something that the C5Mi team has been working tirelessly to develop and push out to the market, and importantly, get approved by SAP as a prepackaged solution. And we were able to announce it last week in a broad press release. But today is that unveiling. It's that aha moment where we get to introduce it to the world and start creating that buzz, and obviously driving towards some more one-on-one conversations where we can meet with you and start showing you the value of what we're tremendously proud of. Joining me today will be two of my colleagues from C5Mi. Again, my name is John Gretter, for those of you that are joining the webinar for the first time in our series. I'm the Vice President of the SAP service line for YASH Technologies and C5Mi. Today, again, as I stated, we'll have a more of a flavor of C5Mi. And my colleagues today will be Christian Zalesky and Alan Witthuhn. I'll ask them to join in just a moment and introduce themselves, but I will share with all of you, I've had the good fortune of working with both Christian and Alan a lot over the last couple of years, and what makes them fantastic at what they do are their practitioners. That's what their background is. They've done these types of things. So when they bring a solution to the market, it's something that they would have found value in their previous careers before they got to C5Mi. So I'm super excited to introduce Christian Zalewski and have Christian join me now. Christian, if you would just lead off by your name, what you do for C5Mi, and really importantly, what makes you the subject matter expert that you are today, and let the audience get to know you a little bit on that front. Christian.
Yes, thank you, John, and super happy to be here and with everybody on the webinar. So like John mentioned, my name's Christian Zalewski. Again, happy to be here. My role at C5Mi is I'm the Director of Supply Chain and Manufacturing for C5Mi. Our group is really focused on the business process side of technology solutions. My personal background is with a Fortune 100 company in different various roles within supply chain, manufacturing, operations, and some quality. And that's the experience that I bring into C5Mi. So from my viewpoint and experience, being practitioners and having been the customers of other partners implementing technology solutions and being a part of all those journeys, we've seen when the business process isn't considered in the implementation of a technology, and what you end up having is a process that is still suboptimal, but is now digital. And it missed the mark for achieving the objectives with which it was approved. So we really want to make sure by focusing on the business process and the technology that you really achieve that return on investment that was planned on.
Thanks, Christian. And as I said, we are joined also by another colleague from C5Mi, Alan Witthuhn. Alan, please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Christian. Alan Witthuhn. I'm a Senior Supply Chain Manager here at C5Mi, but I'm also the proud product owner of the digital pull system. So took the 13, 14 years at a Fortune 500 company in supply chain, purchasing flow operations and manufacturing, and boiled it down to some business and functional needs for then our phenomenal offshore YASH team to turn into the technical solution that we'll be reviewing today.
Great. Thank you, Alan. So with the introductions out of the way, let's set some expectations. What's in it for you from an audience standpoint, and what will take you through for roughly the next 40 minutes? The goal of today's webinar is to introduce the digital pull system in about a 45-minute time frame. And how we're going to go about that is Christian's very shortly going to take you through where we've been. Why was digital pull something that was needed to be developed by C5Mi and YASH Technologies? He'll give you a little bit of a history of what led to the decision to develop that. Then Alan's going to take you through the next chapter, the how's it work? What do we need to have to be able to employ this and implement it in your business? And then we'll go back and deliver, or go back to my bald colleague Christian, and we'll go back into what's next, now what type of a narrative, and we'll bring it all together there and put it into motion to what you should be asking or what you should be doing from a next step standpoint from our point of view in order to meet with the YASH and C5Mi teams to have that more of a one-on-one conversation about the digital pull system. So with that being said, Christian, I'll start with you, and if you would take the audience through the where we've been and what's led up to the creation of digital pull.
Yes, thank you, John. So as we prepare to discuss this new and exciting journey, saw a lot of value to explain and take a moment to walk backwards a little bit to look at how far we've come from lean and technology, because it's been an interesting history and not necessarily always been on the same page. So when I think of that history, and I think of, let's say, 1980s, 1990s, this is the image that comes to my mind. And the reason this image comes to mind is it represents a lapel pin that some lean advisors would wear when they engaged with their clients back in the 80s and 90s. And this lapel pin represents MRP, which is Materials Requirements Planning. And you can see the red slash through it, right? So like we're wearing our lapel pins to represent something. They were representing, by wearing that lapel pin, that lean and technology were at odds with each other. So your ERP and lean initiatives didn't mix. It was like oil and water. In today's terms, it's like putting Biden and Trump in the same room and thinking things would work out well. So what happens when companies need to achieve things? They need to move forward, but they know that their ERP isn't of the type that can take lean solutions. Why couldn't it do lean? It's because it was too rigid. It lacked the ability to adapt and bring the flexibility that lean implies and requires. And that's why lean advisors said, stay away from the technology. But really, there were pieces that could be implemented. So as manufacturers started embracing lean, they found bolt-on solutions that they could then tie back. So as they added all these bolt-ons, they can be represented as silos. And in here in this image, you can see a bunch of silos. And yes, it's the Midwest. And again, another humorous representation to harvest season and silos. But if you think of the ERP from the viewpoint of a farmer looking at their silos, think of the 3 silos over on the right as their core ERP. These 3 silos are connected. Product can move through them. Information can move through them. And then business evolves, grows, acquire more land. You need to add another silo, another requirement, and you add a silo. And because of the circumstances at the time, you don't tie it back to your other silos, to your main ERP. And as this grows and different needs come into the business, different bolt-on solutions, you have fragmented silos. Most companies have fragmented silos. So when you need to run a report, what ends up happening? You export the data out of one or more of these silos and you run it in Excel. So we all know what happens when you manually have to pull all this data and move it across. It takes more effort to achieve what should have been simpler, which we all know can be. So you have inefficiency, you have waste, and you're not maximizing the value of the ERP system that was already paid for when you made that decision to have another bolt-on, because it didn't have the capability to connect well. As another visual representation as to how far we've come, here's another just visual example of that evolution of technology. And just like we've seen with our mobile devices or personal phones, devices have progressed in business. And in here, we're looking at warehousing devices and in the material flow space, but has it progressed to the same capability that technology has shown us in the rest of our lives? I showed you my phone. In my phone, I can check my students' grade, my kids' grades. I can do bank transactions. I can do everything in my personal life in 7 steps or less. Can your warehouse solution do the same? It's probably more than 7 steps to do all of them. What's next? And before we talk about what's next, I know this slide is just a little bit humorous because I'm alluding to a DOS-based system. And it's a little bit scary that this is still a reality out there. And I can attest to this personally because my wife works for a company, a large company, that still has this. It's how they're running their company right now. And yes, she spends a lot of time in Excel because of it. We see this out in industry far more than what the audience may realize. And there is a solution. And ultimately, we started talking and looking at the journey from the 80s and 90s. And technology we know has progressed, and the principles and the capabilities, and we've come to Industry 4.0. And what does all that mean? Simply put, technology has caught up to lean principles. Lean and technology no longer have to do this. Instead, they work together to achieve the same thing. Industry 4.0 means to do more with less. That's the same thing as lean. Industry 4.0 is literally technology catching up to lean principles. And with that, John, I'll take it back to you.
Yeah. And Christian, that last nugget that you just shared, how technology is catching up to the lean manufacturing principles, to me, a successful webinar and the webinars that we've been doing for the last 8 or 9 months in the virtual world that we find ourselves in now are largely graded on if the audience can take away those 4 or 5 nuggets, those aha moments where they're like, you know, I had never thought of that before, or that's what I want to find out more about. And to me, when we were going through the preparation for today's webinar, that was one of the things that I jotted down in my notebook, was how the digital pull system is an example of how technology has finally caught up So, you know, it's the train going down the tracks, and you had the engine that was quite a ways out in front of everything, and that was the lean manufacturing principles. And the second half of that train is the technology, and the caboose is just trying to push it. Come on, catch up, catch up. And now technology has finally done that with some of these solutions that we have. And one of the things that is so innovative about the team at C5Mi, you are all practitioners, and you've taken those problems that you saw in your previous careers and said, if in a perfect world, if I could fix that, this is what I do. And the C5Mi team does that. So you fix those problems, and the digital pull system is another in the long history so far of how C5Mi has been able to do that. So to me, this was one of those aha moments, and one of the takeaways of the value of today's webinar. So we talked about where we were and what's brought us to the creation of the solution. What's important next is for Alan to explain to the audience, well, what do you have to do to make it work? Or what is the bones, the skeleton of the system itself, and explore that with the audience so they can see just how easy it is to get involved with DPS, because that is also critically important. In the times we find ourselves in now, very few clients are looking for a big, huge project that they have to undertake. More so, they're looking for those small scalable wins that have quick ROI or pull through, where they can get in for a little bit of investment but see tremendous value for that investment. And again, why DPS was the perfect way to end up this webinar series is this fits perfectly into that segment, and why SAP was so excited to approve our solution. So Alan, take the audience through what's behind the solution itself, and let them behind the wizard's curtain and see what you've created here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. So it wouldn't be an SAP certified solution if it didn't sit on top of these core products that SAP's provided. And so what the whole solution aims to do is really enable our clients to take advantage of their core investment in SAP S4 and SAP Fiori. And basically DPS is has two options for deployment. There's a core and advanced module, but all in all, it contains 7 essential Fiori applications, all circled around material flow, operator Kanbans, logistics, operator pick, pack, deliver, sequencing, kitting, material hot part request, and some other dashboards, as well as a live factory view of your material flow operations, and some essential KPI dashboards for metrics and reporting near real time. And that's the beauty behind DPS. And since it sits on top of both of these SAP solutions, it centralizes your data and then enables faster and more real-time analytics to happen for the business improvement that needs to take place. In terms of cost, obviously Christian alluded to, we've seen some web-based and also some third-party software is integrated in SAP to help with the Kanban process as well as the material flow operations. And what SAP has done beautifully is created SAP Fiori. And it allows us to not only sit on top of core replenishment functionality, but it also enables for some streamlined processes that may not have been available to integrate and create inside of SAP. And so basically what we've done is eliminated the need for third-party software, which means cost, subscriptions, licensing, support, maintenance, software as a service. So what we've done with DPS is our clients are able to now is just to fold that into their standard support and maintenance playbook. So the existing organization and the existing team that supports their SAP functionality then can pick up DPS as essentially the same product. The other piece that we've enabled, and I touched on a little bit, is the centralized of data. And that's what the key piece is to allow us to have the live factory dashboards and the near real-time analytics and KPIs for the team to evaluate their material flow operations. And really, when we talk about lean principles and eliminating waste in material flow operations, it comes to mind is the RF scan gun. And so DPS eliminates the need for an RF scanner. We've taken some of that functionality and integrated it into the tablet and Bluetooth scanner. But really, if you've ever been on the shop floor with protective gloves on and tried to hit some small buttons on an RF scanner, you may step inside of a world of frustration that most users experience on a daily basis. Obviously, the touch screen and the analog view of that is sometimes cumbersome to navigate in terms of the user experience. By taking DPS and putting it on tablets, we can put Kanban boards in work centers, we can mount them to tuggers, we can mount them to fork trucks, but what that enables is other applications and other necessary information to be displayed on the tablet. And that functionality is not available typically in an RF scan gun without some custom integration. And so,
Alan,
yeah.
This is John just jumping in, and to me, this is another one of those big moments in the webinar, tying into what Christian had shared earlier about all the things he could do in 7 steps or less on his personal device. To me, it seems like that's what DPS is allowing to be done on the shop floor, is bringing us far closer with the use of the tablet, building in other functionalities into that tablet other than just the enablement around digital pull system. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, 100%. And so even in the next couple slides, you're going to see it is all aimed at reducing steps, eliminating waste, and creating a more centralized user experience for the operations team, as well as the production operations team. And so the last thing DPS aims to do is your hardware costs associated with RF scanners and tablets can be a significant reduction for our clients in terms of the hardware capital required to support the material flow organization. So on that same note, John, I'm going to show you a little bit of screen of our Kanban dashboard, but this is essentially from our demo system. But if you look inside of SAP core transaction codes or even the Fiori environment, it takes about anywhere from 10 to 15 steps from user login to resetting a Kanban to empty. And so by putting the Kanban board on a tablet inside of a work center or on a material flow rack, the operator is now able to push the button and in 2 clicks request the material again and reset that Kanban to empty. And so the other added functionality of Fiori is sitting on top of SAP is when there's material changes. As we all know that things change inside of manufacturing operations, it's a simple refresh button for the users then to refresh the screen and see the updated parts list, parts quantities, container quantities, etc. There's no more logging in, logging out, etc. It's a refresh button and then move on with your processes. One of the things I love to ask clients is, hey, what do you do when a Kanban's not able to be reset? And what do you do when these things happen that we all know happen, that we've all coined in terms of hot part requests? And it kind of brings up some, I just say, not so positive memories of my time on the shop floor and hearing the radio chatter and the emails at night, and they all subject line hot part requests. And so we all know that we don't live in a perfect world and things happen, but typically when I ask that question of clients, it's an operator flagging to the operations supervisor via and-on signal or verbal communication. The operations folks are then left to connect with the material flow group via text, email, radio calls, whether that's the fork truck driver or the logistics specialist that's helping them expedite material. And so all of these wastes, right, within communication. So what DPS does is aim to allow the operator to signal that, and for that signal to go directly to the support organization. And so in that, we've streamlined the communication process, but we've also centralized all of these requests that are happening. And so now your material flow organization can see those requests and really decide what's hot, what's not, and or if it is hot, what's the priority? You're taking a standard process and you're throwing in all these hot part requests into your standard procedures to move material. And even that can cause a lot of disruption and disarray inside of your organization. So, but the key is to not allow them to happen, but they happen. And then what do you do with them, right? So when these things happen, what do you do with that hot part request? And so one of the essential functionalities of DPS is to take all of those hot part requests, regardless if they were filled or not via the expedite process in SAP, but really assign them and really ask the 5 whys. You know, what broke down in the system that caused the operator to request a material hot? And this is not just a material flow issue, right? Material flow organizations and those that are on the line can attest that they're the product of a lot of inputs from other organizations. So it could be a late delivery from supplier, a bombing, even downtime in an upstream process that caused a subassembly to be late. You know, all of these things happen outside of the material flow organization, but by enabling the hot part, enabling the root cause, you then can create the corrective action and the visibility to the rest of the organization of what's really important, what needs to be fixed. So whether it's multiple parts on a work center or over the course of a month, you know, multiple work centers, you can really dive deep with your peers and your counterparts across the organization to say, hey, these are the things that are interrupting material flow at the point of use. And really, it's all about driving the appropriate corrective action. And you know, I didn't go through all of the details of the sequencing operator dashboard and the poke-yoke that we've done with the double scans of the logistics dashboard from pick, pack, deliver. I didn't go through the live factory view of your material flow organizations. I didn't have the time today, so John's kind of limited me in my my rollout of DPS, but I'll take it for what it's worth from the time that you did give me, John. So.
Well, Alan, in fairness, I had to put some guide rails on you, or I know that this webinar would have taken all afternoon.
Passion.
100% right. But before we get on to the next segment, Alan, and I love it when these types of questions come in from the audience, but we do have a question from the audience around cost. And that question was, understanding that we can do away with RF scanners, what do we have to purchase other than the tablets to implement digital pull system?
Yeah, so your costs essentially become no software because you already have the HANA and Fiori subscriptions. Essentially what we've seen is some additional licensing inside of those environments from SAP to enable the shop floor capabilities. And then it's just our cost in terms of developing the solution and implementation. And so that's a flat one-time cost that is not a reoccurring expense. So in terms of what they're paying today and what they'll pay tomorrow, RF scanners are, you know, our solution drives a cheaper hardware as well as all of the licensing and support for a third-party software. So you're looking at a one-time expense to create that ROI and that value back. But that's
okay, great. Yeah, so nothing too cumbersome then from a software purchase standpoint and everything like that. And you can almost make the case that the retiring of the RF scanners from a hardware standpoint over time is a large chunk of being able to pay for the implementation itself.
Yeah, and whoever asked that question, there are details out there. We could probably get the link out to the participants of the certified solution website that is hosted on SAP, but it will break down the core and the advanced functionality for DPS and go through all of those details of standard timeline to implement and standard potential cost, etc. So yeah.
Okay, great. And then Alan, before we transition over to Christian for the final segment of today's webinar and that segment of what's next, now what, any last thoughts on the makeup of digital pull?
No, I think it's necessary for the audience to understand that it came from years of maybe frustration on the shop floor that, you know, in where I previously had been employed, we had some different solutions in place. And then when we started visiting our clients in C5Mi under Christian's organization and the rest of the team, we started to know this, this problem of various solutions being implemented across the board to do what's possible inside of SAP and Fiori in their own environment that they've already purchased. So that's the last thought I would leave with the audience today.
Great, thanks, Alan. So Christian, let's transition over, and in the next 10, 12 minutes or so, take the audience through what's next as a result of unveiling DPS publicly now. It's out there in the marketplace. What should the audience do, or what should they know as a result of today's webinar and the unveiling of the solution?
Yeah, thanks, John. Excuse me. So let's start with what we should know and talk about. And our digital poll system is truly at the forefront of the combination of lean and technology. And I really want to leave our audience with that image and that thought that we're truly combining the two. So when we say it's the complete lean flow solution, we mean that entirely. It provides all the capabilities a manufacturer will need to execute a pull system, all of them, in the most lean way that technology has allowed. And this is supported by SAP's commitment to the solution in how they made it a certified solution as a package. And if the audience remembers, we shared some of those challenges at the beginning in the journey and how lean and technology have evolved. And those fragmented silos, the UI, the numerous steps and all of that, and the inefficiency associated with all of that. This solution, as you heard Alan mention, just like my phone, I mentioned 7 steps. You're now ordering material in 2 steps, down by over 10. This is entirely focused on the user and maintaining data in the core ERP. So we've eliminated, thinking of those fragmented silos, all of those silos on the left of the image. And everything is now connected and the data is there. So what does that mean when you get rid of those silos? Your costs go down because you don't have the licensing. And then the maintenance. You had to integrate those other silos to maintain the data. And additionally, if you have the data both in the ERP and in the silo, you had to resolve the data between the two. You had data discrepancies, and there's a lot of effort that goes into resolving all of that. Now, your pull system is your ERP data. So the simplicity from a business standpoint is tremendously leveraged here. And if you have all of this inside of your ERP and all the data is right there, the ability to build a common operational picture which you can manage from is much simpler. There's no more exporting data into Excel to then build charts to understand how you're performing, your KPIs, and all of that. You can drive your KPIs from the core data and take the man out of the loop. And additionally, the solution, like Alan mentioned, has those root cause corrective action capabilities in order to do what any lean-minded solution has to do, and that's to support the plan, do, check, act cycle. Because you will find defects, you will find problems, but have built the ability to understand them, study them, and resolve them is a core lean requirement. And technology today requires analytics, right? Everywhere we go, it's this analytics, that analytics. And we have that as well as a part of this solution. So it is truly all-encompassing as a lean flow solution. And all of this at a fraction of the cost of the status quo. Ultimately, this is an evolution of where you are now. And to stay with the satirical images and a little bit of tongue-in-cheek things, this image is just to drive home that bolt-on solutions are no longer needed. The people on this webinar should really question, why do I need to drive more complexity into my organization when I have an ERP with SAP S/4HANA that can do this? And lastly, I'll share that this is a foundational component in the implementation of a live factory.
So with that, you mentioned Live Factory, and Alan brought up Live Factory numerous times. And again, for those that aren't aware on today's webinar, Live Factory is a large solution within the C5Mi umbrella of solutions. The digital pull system resides under that umbrella. It's a component of the Live Factory. So whether you're reaching out to ask the experts at yash.com to find out more information about the digital pull system, you may also want to reach out to ask the experts at yash.com to find out more about Live Factory. You've heard that brought up numerous times today, again, whether that be by Alan or by Christian, about what Live Factory can do to modernize your manufacturing processes and get them aligned as rapidly as possible to Industry 4.0. So again, we've talked about Live Factory in webinars that we've done earlier this year. If you're interested in seeing any of those webinars, again, please feel free to reach out to ask the experts at yash.com. We can send you the link to one of our Live Factory webinars. But again, it's important to know that the DPS solution fits underneath the umbrella of Live Factory and is a component of driving your Lean 4.0 manufacturing process. So before we wrap up, and guys, I appreciate it very much, you getting to the point, being clear and concise, because everybody loves having a little bit of extra time given back to them in their day. But we did have one final question from the audience, and it can be to either one of you. This goes right along the lines, in my mind, to the question I posed from the audience earlier to Alan about cost. This is about timeline. And the question that came in is, how long does it take routinely to implement digital pull system within a manufacturing client?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take that one. So I mentioned, if you go out to the certified solution website on SAP, you'll see the card out there with the core and the advanced solution. So, you know, what we've done, the thing that we aim to do at C5Mi is initiate quick wins. And so the core solution, with considering the configurations that are existing inside of your SAP environment, is, you know, within the 90-day range. And then with the advanced solution and all of the functionality that we talked about, the 7 applications and the KPI dashboards, it's right around 120 days to implementation. And so that's what we've seen. We do have a test system. I do want to note that if anyone's interested in seeing a demo, reach out to Ask the Experts. We have an entire demo system environment set up. We'd be happy to jump on a call and do a 30-minute, 40-minute review with anybody that's interested. But typically, John, 90 for the core and 120 for the advanced functionality.
So taking away from that, Alan, and again, super important, I appreciate you bringing up the demo capabilities, but my takeaways are, to reiterate, the core solution, the digital pull system solution, around 90 days. If you want to go with the full suite, you get all the bells and whistles, you got 120 days. So for the standard car off the manufacturer's line, we'll keep it in manufacturing speak today, that's 90 days. To do the one with all the bells and whistles, the heated seats, the sunroof, the fancy stereo, we're talking about 120 days for that. But if you want to figure out if you can make do with the standard car, or if you need all the bells and whistles, they can reach out to C5Mi and you can let them take it for a test drive on the demo environment and really see which solution is best matched to their needs. Is that accurate?
100%. Yeah, we'd be happy to do.
Perfect. Well, again, we'll wrap up, but before we do, if you are interested in a demo or interested in learning more about digital pull system or learning more about Live Factory as a whole, don't hesitate to reach out to us at asktheexperts@yash.com. Again, that's asktheexperts@yash.com. On behalf of Alan, Christian, and myself, we want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode, and please accept my sincere thanks for attending all of the series. It's been a tremendous honor to be able to bring these 4 episodes to the virtual audience and let you see some of the great things going on that are truly just a sample of the great things that are going on at both YASH Technologies and C5Mi. Until we see each other again, hopefully in person, but if it is happen to be virtual, until we see each other again, thank you for your time today, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.